The Thera eruption released 24 times 10 to the power of 18 joules of kinetic energy in a fraction of a second. To visualize this 100 times nuclear scale violence, imagine the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima, then multiply that destruction by 53,000. This isn't a theoretical scenario or a sci-fi projection. It is a calculated geological fact from the Bronze Age. The Thera eruption, situated on the island we now call Santorini, wasn't just a disaster. It was a planetary reset button that vaporized an entire civilization and broke the spine of the first European superpower. For decades, historians and geologists have been fighting a silent war over what actually happened here. They argued over dates, they argued over the death toll, and they argued over the sheer scale of the event. But recent findings from late 2025 have finally ended the debate. The eruption was not a singular event, but a cascading series of catastrophes that lasted for days, dismantling the Bronze Age world piece by piece. Most documentaries will tell you this happened in the distant past, safely locked away in 1600 BC. They are lying to you. The geological system that caused this catastrophe is not dead. In fact, as of January 2026, sensors in the Aegean Sea confirm that the magma chambers beneath the seabed are recharging at a rate we haven't seen in centuries. The monster is breathing again. To understand the future threat, we must dissect the past with cold, forensic precision. The mystery that has plagued archaeologists for a century wasn't how big was the bang. The mystery was the bodies. When Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, it left Pompeii full of stone-encased ghosts, people frozen in their final moments of terror. But at the excavation site of Akrotiri on Santorini, archaeologists found empty streets. No bodies, no skeletons, just silence. This absence created the Minoan myth, the romantic idea that these ancient people were so advanced, so prescient, that they predicted the volcano and escaped in time, sailing off into the sunset. That comforting myth has now been shattered. We finally found the victims, but we didn't find them on the island. We found them buried in the rubble of a tsunami over 200 kilometers away. Let's strip away the romance of Atlantis for a moment and look at the raw physics of what happens when 80 cubic kilometers of rock are instantly converted into gas, ash, and glass. This is the dense rock equivalent calculation, or DRE, that geologists use to measure apocalypse. For comparison, the eruption of Krakatoa in 1883 ruptured eardrums 40 miles away and circled the globe with its shockwave. Thera was 4 times larger than Krakatoa. The destruction of the island happened in 4 distinct, terrifying phases, a staccato of violence that gave the victims false hope before the end. Phase 1 was the warning. A Plinian column of pumice and ash shot 36 kilometers into the stratosphere. This column was so high it would have been visible from Crete, 70 miles away, standing like a pillar of doom against the sky. This phase buried the town of Akrotiri, preserving its 3-story buildings and intricate frescoes under meters of white ash. But this was just the throat clearing. Phase 2 is where the nightmare truly began. The volcano's central vent fractured. The Aegean Sea poured millions of tons of cold seawater directly into a chamber of boiling magma. The resulting reaction is called a phreato-magmatic explosion. It didn't just blow up, it blew out. It generated base surges, supersonic avalanches of superheated steam and ash that behaved like a fluid. Physics tells us that pyroclastic flows usually stop at the water's edge. But Thera's flows were so massive and so hot that they defied this rule. They traveled over the water. The superheated material vaporized the surface of the sea instantly, creating a cushion of steam. The deadly cloud then rode on top of this steam layer, racing across the open ocean at the speed of a jetliner. If you had been standing on the deck of a ship 50 miles away, you wouldn't have seen a wave. You would have seen a wall of black darkness erasing the horizon, boiling the sea as it approached. This leads us to the most controversial aspect of the eruption, the tsunami. We often visualize tsunamis as single, massive waves, like something out of a Hollywood movie. But the sediment cores extracted from the seabed in late 2024 tell a far more violent story. The The Thera eruption didn't create a wave. It created a battering ram that pulsed for days. The excavation at Çeşme Balıkesir on the Turkish coast has provided the smoking gun evidence we lacked for a century. In a chaotic layer of debris, archaeologists uncovered the skeleton of a young man and his dog. But it's where they found him that is terrifying. He wasn't just buried in the mud, he was found below a layer of ancient rescue pits. This implies a harrowing sequence of events. The first waves hit, destroying the coast. The survivors emerged from the high ground and began digging, desperately trying to find their loved ones. And then, while they were digging, the next wave hit. The eruption sequence lasted for days, generating multiple tsunamis that caught the rescuers in the same grave as the victims. The debris field shows 4 distinct tsunami signatures, proving that the ocean continued to attack the coastline long after the sky had turned black. The scale of this water displacement is hard to comprehend. We now have verified evidence of Thera's tsunami deposits as far away as Caesarea, Israel, over 1,000 kilometers from the blast zone. This brings us to a critical question about the timeline. For years, historians debated whether this event happened in 1500 BC or 1628 BC. The difference matters because it changes which pharaoh was sitting on the throne of Egypt and which empires were in power. A breakthrough study published in late 2025 using radiocarbon dating on olive branches buried in the ash has finally narrowed the window. It places the eruption in the late 16th century BC, likely before the rise of the new kingdom of Egypt. This timing is crucial because it aligns with a period of chaos known as the Second Intermediate Period. It suggests that Thera didn't just destroy the Minoans, it destabilized the entire geopolitical balance of the ancient world. The ash cloud would have drifted south, choking the Nile Delta. Historical records from this era speak of a darkness by day and a tempest where no torch could be lit. This wasn't a metaphor, it was likely a literal description of the volcanic winter that followed. The impact on the Minoan civilization itself was total. The Minoans were the first European superpower, a thalassocracy, an empire of the sea. Their power didn't come from walls or armies, it came from their navy and their trade routes. Thera was a critical node in that network, a massive harbor for their fleet. In a single afternoon, that harbor was vaporized. The tsunamis would have smashed the Minoan fleet to matchsticks across the northern coast of Crete. Without their ships, the Minoans were paralyzed. They couldn't trade. They couldn't protect their food imports. They couldn't project power. The ashfall would have ruined the soil on Crete for years, leading to immediate famine. But the most devastating blow was ideological. The Minoan kings and priests claimed their authority came from their connection to the Earthshaker, the god of earthquakes. When the Earthshaker destroyed their world, the priests lost their legitimacy. The social contract was broken. 50 years later, when the Mycenaeans from the Greek mainland arrived on Crete, they didn't have to fight a massive war. They walked into the ruins of a broken society and took over the palaces. The eruption didn't kill every Minoan, but it killed the idea of Minoan power. We are now at a crossroads in understanding this event, and I want to hear your perspective in the comments. Based on the evidence of ash in Egypt and tsunamis in Israel, do you believe the Thera eruption was the primary cause for the late Bronze Age instability across the entire region? A global reset? Or do you believe historians are exaggerating, and this was merely a local tragedy that the empires eventually shrugged off? Type global or local in the comments right now. This debate is currently splitting the archaeological community, and your vote matters in how we frame the next video. While the history is fascinating, the geology is urgent. Let's move from the history books to the seismographs, because the story of Thera isn't over. The caldera you see today, the beautiful blue bay where cruise ships dock, is not a sleeping giant. It is a reloading weapon. 7 kilometers northeast of Santorini lies a submarine volcano called Kolumbo. For years, we thought Kolumbo and Santorini were separate systems. We treated them like neighbors who ignore each other. But a study published in Nature Geoscience in late 2025 has revealed a terrifying connection. Using high-resolution seismic tomography, essentially an MRI for the Earth, scientists discovered a transcrustal magmatic system. The two volcanoes share the same plumbing. Here is the data point that should keep you awake at night. In January 2025, a massive injection of magma occurred. Roughly 300 million cubic meters of molten rock intruded into the space between these two vents. That is the volume of 120,000 Olympic swimming pools of magma, forcing its way into the crust in a matter of weeks. This triggered a swarm of over 28,000 micro-earthquakes. The system is breathing. It is expanding. The pressure that destroyed the Minoans is building again. The difference is, in 1600 BC, they had no idea it was coming. They saw the smoke. They felt the tremors, but they couldn't see the chamber filling up beneath their feet. Today, we can see the red lines on the chart, but we are just as powerless to stop it. Uncovering these geological links is why Ancient Chronicles HD exists. We don't just retell the myths. We use the latest satellite data and archaeological reports to reconstruct the reality of the past. If you want to support this level of deep dive research, verify your subscription is active and the bell is on. We are building a library of the Earth's lost history, and we need you in the archives with us. We cannot close this file without addressing the ghost in the room. Plato. For centuries, serious scientists mocked the idea of Atlantis, treating it as a philosophical fable. But look at the geography of pre-eruption Thera. Before the explosion, it was a single round island with a central lagoon, a ring of land surrounding water surrounding a central island. This matches Plato's description of concentric rings of water and land perfectly. Plato described a civilization destroyed in a single day and night of misfortune. He described a city of red, white, and black stone. If you walk the cliffs of Santorini today, you see exactly those layers: red lava, white pumice, black ash. He described a culture obsessed with bulls. The Minoan frescoes are famous for their bull-leaping rituals. The match is too perfect to be coincidence. The memory of the Thera Eruption, the sound that cracked the sky, the wave that swallowed the horizon, was so traumatic that it was passed down, whisper by whisper, from Egyptian priests to Greek lawmakers, until it became the legend of Atlantis. Atlantis wasn't a continent in the Atlantic Ocean. It was a Bronze Age superpower in the Aegean, vaporized by the same forces that are currently waking up beneath the Kolumbo Volcano. But there is a darker layer to this legend. Recent excavations suggest that in the final days before the eruption, the people of Akrotiri were trying to fix their city. We found piles of debris organized on the streets ready for removal. We found walls that had been freshly repaired after a precursor earthquake. They were cleaning up. They thought the worst was over. They thought they had survived the anger of the gods. They were wrong. The calm before the eruption was a geological trap. The magma was degassing, building pressure for the final release. It serves as a chilling reminder of our own vulnerability. We look at our modern world, our skyscrapers, our digital networks, our global economy, and we feel permanent. The Minoans felt permanent too. They had running water, multi-story architecture, and art that rivals the Renaissance. And in 24 hours, they were history. The Thera Eruption teaches us one undeniable lesson. Civilizations are fragile. We build our cities on the edge of the tectonic plates. We sail our ships on the volatile oceans, and we assume the ground is solid. The magma chamber beneath the Aegean is refilling. The cycle continues, and the only question remaining is, will we be ready when the mountain speaks again? This is Ancient Chronicles HD. We'll see you in the next discovery.